All right, let me begin again. About the EV Council, this group convenes quarterly to offer a space for peer learning about new EV trends and data, as well as best practices for projects supporting EVs and electrified mobility around the Bay Area. We are a resource and we are a community to raise important issues and learn from each other. We last saw each other in December 2025 for our municipal fleet electrification meeting, which was a great one, and it's really wonderful to see you all again today. If this is your first EV Council meeting, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. A reminder, please remain on mute during all of our presentations. During the discussion portion, we will welcome you to come off mute if you would like. So let's take a look at today's agenda. Our first and our main item is our panel discussion on EV charger deployment and certification. And we will have three guests. We'll get to that in just a minute. After that, we will do a very quick rundown of our December survey results, which we launched back last year. We have some updated results for you. And finally, we'll close with our roundtable announcements per usual. So let's look a little bit more in depth at our panel discussion for today. Our goals of today's session are to uplift efficient, cost-effective, transparent practices to achieve EV charging equipment accuracy, given new state regulations providing the context for this topic. We would like to stimulate peer learning across sectors and across different counties throughout the Bay Area, and we would like to reduce barriers to responsible EV infrastructure deployment. There are a lot of great minds in this room, and we are hoping that we'll have a very thorough discussion where we can bounce some of our ideas off of each other in the hopes of improving the process. So a moderated Q&A session will follow. Please hold your questions until the end of the panel presentations, and I, the moderator, will call on those with your hands raised, or if you have a question, you can put it in the chat, and we'll get to it there. So we have our three panelists today that we will introduce to you: Jeremy Ady, Matt Slettengren, and Mal Skoran. We're so pleased that they could join us. Our first up will be Matt Slettengren, who is a graduate of UC Davis in managerial agricultural economics. In 2000, Matt started with the Contra Costa County Agricultural Department as an insect trapper, then slowly moved up the ranks until appointed as the Agricultural Commissioner / Director of Weights and Measures in March of 2019. So I'll hand it over to you, Matt, for you to start. Thanks.
You are muted, Matt.
Oops. Oh, sorry. I think I muted you by accident.
Okay, I'm good now. Okay, so thank you everyone. First time here. We've been trying to get our electric vehicle program running. And so we're kind of more into the admin and the beginning stages. Jeremy's much further into it than we are. So I'll kind of gloss over some of the in-field challenges. Just gonna go to the next slide. Okay, just real quick, what Weights Measures is, we inspect and see all commercial weighing and measuring devices, verify that they're accurate. So basically protecting consumers as well as the industry from anyone cheating, either on purpose or not. We just enforce the state and local laws and regulations for accuracy. Next slide. So commercial device is any weighing measuring instrument used to determine quantity for monetary transaction. And this is just a list of what we do, very general list. Each of these include many different devices in them. We don't have to inspect non-commercial devices, but some people want to, and we will do that for them as well. Next slide. All commercial devices must be type approved. That goes through CTEP or NTEP, California's type approval program, or the national type approval program. And then for EDs, when an app changes, so an ED charger runs off the app, they make a change to that app, that new change to that app must be type approved. So that is something which has been an issue from what I've understood. Most folks are good at that, but every once in a while somebody's making changes quickly and not always getting tech approval. Next slide. So for us, since we're getting into this now, a financial challenge we're having. Testing equipment costs about $180,000 for one AC tester and one DC stand, plus $60,000 to $70,000 for a new truck, plus slide for the truck and a bunch of other equipment that needs to go on there. We'll probably need one full-time inspector to do all the testing that we need to. And that's another 150-ish thousand a year. And we're going to get $21,000 in fees to cover this whole program. Does not pencil out. That's going to be tough for us. That comes out of general fund, which means we cut a number of other programs to make it happen. This is mandated. We have to do. Currently, we have 60 locations in the county with 600 devices. But looking at Department of Energy's database, there's over 200 locations. I have no idea how many devices are currently in the county. So we're still struggling to get everybody to register with us and let us know they have a device in the county so we can actually test it as we're mandated to do. The other issue we have is training and workload. We have to get a lot of training, and then our workload, advance. We do have other things we have to do. We also have Weighmaster, Petroleum, QC, and complaints that we have to monitor. And we have over 2,000 devices to inspect every year and over 2,200 locations. And that's for approximately 8 staff. Some of them do work in the ag side as well, so we don't have 8 full-time staff to do that. Not enough people for the amount of work and not enough funding. Next slide. Other changes, trying to find out the responsible party for these devices. People are supposed to let us know, supposed to register with us when they put a device in. And when a service agent puts in a device, they are supposed to send us a place number service report. Some of them are good at that. Most of them are not, which is why we only have 60 locations and 600 devices in the county out of, I have no idea how many. There are too many different apps for us to get on the phone, and changing apps without type approval is a issue that I mentioned earlier. But for us, we have to download an app for each EV. I've heard there's also issues with some service agents getting their testing equipment fixed, which is going to make it harder to get the devices serviced. Next. So problems in the field, some devices, devices already in use. We drive out, half an hour to a location and the entire bank is full. We can't test, we've wasted an hour. Usually we can do other inspections in the area, but it's tough when you're driving specialized equipment to go take care of that one inspection. You can't do it. Device is broken, out of service. We only did inspections for a few weeks when we were borrowing equipment from DMS, and we had issues with broken nozzles, bare wires, which is a safety issue. Something else to worry about is having a little cart in this parking space with 2 cars either side. Can a car see us when they try to pull in? That's something we're concerned about. Haven't had a problem with it yet, but it's a concern. Maneuvering a big truck with a large emulator in the back, getting contact information. We've got phone numbers on these devices, which take you to a phone tree, which you will never find out who actually owns it. Some of them you can, but that's part of the issue of finding out who is maintaining and dealing with these devices. Next. And I think that was it. I tried to go through quick. Like I said, most of my experience has been with the administrative side, getting things set up, trying to get the program off the ground. Jeremy, who's next, has a lot more experience in the field work. So that's.
Thanks, Matt. Before we go any further, I usually save the questions for the end, but there's a very quick logistical question. Emily wants to know what counts as a change for an app. And maybe since you were talking about that, you could just clarify.
That is a better question for DMS. don't know how significant of a change it can be, and if it's cosmetic, I don't know if that will cause a problem. But I've never dealt with the CTAP type approval before myself. I don't know if Jeremy knows. If not, DMS
So
is the one asking.
So the reason why the apps have to be, well, some of the apps have to be type approved is because most things we test, the display is on the actual device. But some of these EV chargers are using the app as the display, so they get those type approved along with the actual charger. So it's really kind of a question for DMS, to be perfectly honest with you. What constitutes a major change in the software? We also have that issue with point of sale systems that interface with scales. That software is often type approved, and there are various versions out there. And when they change a version that could affect the metrology of it, they do require it to go through the type approval process again. But that is really kind of a very technical question for the Department of Measurement Standards. So if you have any questions about that, if you're a manufacturer or a producer, you have questions about that, we would direct you to DMS.
Thank you, both of you. And thanks, Matt, for your presentation. Next, I'm going to introduce, well, you've already been speaking, but Jeremy Adey from San Mateo County, also from the Agriculture and Weights and Measure Department. Let me reshare my screen. So Jeremy has over 27 years of experience working for Agriculture and Weights and Measures departments, including a little over 25 years with San Mateo County. Jeremy has worked in a wide, are you able to see my screen?
We can see it.
Okay, thanks. Uh, Jeremy has worked in a wide variety of programs across the department, including serving as a pest detection specialist. For the past 12 years, he has served as a deputy agricultural commissioner slash sealer. In this role, he oversees the Weights and Measures program, as well as certified farmers markets, pest detection, and organic programs. And he holds a biology BA from San Jose State. And please take it away, Jeremy.
So right here on the first screen, I'll kind of point out a little bit differences in the chargers. So here we're using a man-in-the-middle cable. This is a DC test and Tesla. So we have the emulator, which well, not the emulator, the test standard, which is on the cart there, and then we have it plugged into our Chevy Bolt. So we're using that in place of the truck-mounted emulator, which is basically just giant heater to burn off the energy that you'll see kind of a little bit later in here. But we chose to go this route because we already had the bolts and everything nicely fit in the back of it, and it just kind of made sense to be a little bit cheaper. So if counties have an EV, this is another option they can go through to test AC. So you can go to the next slide. So roll rates and measures. Matt already went over this. We have a lot of duplication in our presentation, so I'll be skipping by some of the slides here. So next. So California Legal Authority, Business Professions Codes, California Code of Regulations, and then we have our local ordinances that set up the fee structures and registration. Next. Commercial devices and type approval. Matt talked about this a little bit, but like the big thing is these need to be type approved and go through the entire process with that, whether that's with the state or with the feds. Next. So here's kind of what a type approval looks like from California. So you can see it there. Everything needs to go through them before, and this includes not just EV, it's gas pumps, scales, submeters. A number of things have to go through what we call the CTEP and the NTEP programs. So just if you're installing or you're buying these, just double check that they are approved. And if you're having a hard time figuring that out, give your local weights and measures a call, and we'll look it up for you. Next. So this is a lot like gas stations. We are testing to make sure you're being delivered the amount of fuel that the device says. And just as an example, we've heard that these are the electric chargers. They're very accurate. We're seeing very little failure rate. I'd like to compare that to gasoline dispensers. At least in my county, in the past year, we've tested quite a few, and we generally have about a 98% pass rate with gas stations. I don't think that would be the pass rate if we weren't out there looking at them, but we like to believe that we have such a high pass rate for retail motor fuel is because we're out there annually looking at these and making sure they're in compliance and responding to complaints in a timely manner. Next. So new commercial device. So here's the emulator that the DC for DC that Contra Costa is purchasing. So it is a truck mounted thing. So you do need a specialty vehicle to truck mount that, and you have to back it in, and you can see in both these situations where it can get difficult for us when we're out there testing these. Because if these are occupied, it's not like a gas pump where somebody's going to be moving away from that gas pump in 5 or 10 minutes, at 10 minutes at the most. We can sit there and wait. When we come across somebody plugged into a charger here, we'll test what's open and we hope it opens up, but a lot of times we're making multiple trips back to a location to get a charger. And we actually have approved some weekend work for one of our inspectors come out there and hit some office parking lots to do the test there when there's nobody around. One thing to know, the regulations are a little bit staggered. This is a situation where technology outpaced regulation. So we're playing catch up on this. So any AC level 2 that was installed before 2021 is exempt from the rules until I believe 2030. And for DC, anything installed before 2023 is exempt from regulation until I think 2033, I believe so. And municipalities, if we have any municipalities on this, you guys were exempt from just about all weights and measures regulations until January of this year, where the legislature passed a law allowing us to regulate and test these just like we would any other commercial device. Next. So overview of EVSE regulations. Like I said, outpaced regulation. These regulations and the testing and everything came into effect after these devices were already out there. NIST, the National Association, adopts specific testing standards, and California generally adopts those. And that's what we did. We adopted NIST Handbook 44 with California specific changes, but we're mostly aligned with the rest of the nation. Next. So we've got the California Code of Regulations, which is contained in a document that we call the Field Reference Manual for us. That kind of gives us all the requirements and everything everything that we need to know how to test these. So Section 110 of the General Code, that is where you get the marking requirements, type approvals, model serial number, and all the sealing provisions like that. That's the code that requires all that to be done. So that requires them to go to either the California or the national to get their stuff type approved. Section 3.4 of the California Code of Regulations, it lays out some of the specific requirements to EVSE and does, and here it says, that's actually a little bit wrong on the AC there. So all AC prior to January 1 is exempt from regulation until 2033. The slide here is wrong. Then all DC, like I said earlier, is exempt if it was installed before January 1, 2023 until 2033. So it gave us a little bit of break on the amount that we have to test out there. But coming down the road, come 2030, there's going to be a ton more that that are exempt that are going to have to come into compliance, and hopefully most of them will by then. But that's going to really drastically increase our workload. So next. So a little more on the regulations. I think we kind of already went over this. Marking requirements. There's specific marking requirements on the device, and it's a little bit different from some of our other devices just because of the nature of these devices, and some of these marking requirements can be allowed just to be available in the app, but there are specific requirements that actually have to be on the device. And just for reference, the tolerances for acceptance, and that's when it's a new install. And then maintenance, that's when we go back and we test again after the new install. So AC, it's plus or minus 1% for acceptance, and plus or minus 2% for maintenance. DC, it's a little bit bigger, and like I said, I guess given manufacturers a little bit leeway on DC until 2033. But from what we've found is most of them are in compliance when we're running them at the 1% and 2%. So even though there is this little more allowable for until 2023 for DC, we're seeing that they would probably pass anyways. Next. So steps to install an EV and a charger. So is it commercial or not commercial? If you're not charging for it, if it's free, if it's a benefit for the apartment complex, or X company has 20 chargers out in their parking lot for their employees to charge for free, don't need to register with us. You don't need to be tested. They're not charging, so that's great. We don't need to know about them. If they are commercial, and that's where you really have to start being picky on what you select. You need to make sure they're NTEP or CTEP approved. If not, we will come out there and red tag them. And red tagging means taking them out of service. And then go to your planning department. There was on the next one, there was a bill passed that required a checklist for planning departments to put together. Unfortunately, they didn't put us on the checklist, so we will be reaching out to planning departments to put us on the checklist so we know when these are installed. Next. So construction, so registered service agent. After it's installed, registered service agent needs to come out there, calibrate it, seal, and send a place in service report to the County Weights and Measures Department. Once the service agent does that, if you're using a service agent and they follow all the rules and place in the service, it can be used commercially until we get out there. So you don't have to wait to use it commercially until we get out there if it's been installed by a service agent. If it's not installed by a service agent, it cannot be used commercially until we come out and check it and make sure it's accurate. Owner of the device registers with the local county weights and measures and pays a annual registration fee, $120 per location and $28.20 per device. Check with your home county on that, because there might be some differences in the amount, but I think most of us in the Bay Area are at the max that we're allowed in the code. And I'll get a little divergent here, but this is where we kind of run into some problems. This is where a lot of the work is going into, is finding out who owns these devices. There's a lot of work trying to figure out who to send the device registration bill to and who to contact if the device is broken. With ChargePoint, since it's not the manufacturer that owns them and most of them are independently owned, it can be extremely time consuming for us. So if when you're installing these, you reach out to us individually, that would be great, and it'd be super helpful. Next. So County Weights and Measures inspection. So this is inspecting an AC, so we don't need a vehicle hooked up to it. So we have our test standard, and below it is what we call the emulator, which, like I said, is just a heater. It burns off the energy. And there's 3 tests per port on these, and it probably takes around 15 minutes to do each one, assuming everything's smooth and we pull into the spot and hook up pretty quickly. But when there's cars there, like I said, it can really take up the time. So what we do, we check the type approval, we look for the markings, we make sure they're marked correctly, we test it for accuracy and specifications. If it's correct, we put our seal on it, and same seal we put on gas pumps. If it's incorrect, we'll either red tag it, which means there's either an issue with it that's in the business's favor, or there's another broken thing, so we'll red tag it. If it's in the consumer's favor, so it's giving away more energy than it's charging for, we'll put what we call blue tag on, most counties will, which is a temporary use permit, and they can use it for 30 days until they get it fixed. If they don't fix it in that 30 days, we'll come out there and put a red tag on it. So a registered service agent is the one that needs to repair it. Technically, if you want it to be used immediately after repair, you need to use a registered service agent. If you don't use a registered service agent to repair it, you need to call us before it can start being used again. Only a registered service agent or us can remove our red tags or blue tags. And then we come out when we're notified, and we'll retest them and make sure they're correct. Next. So RSA responsibilities. So placing in a service, security seal. Most of these don't have physical security seals on them. It's a software security seal. So we don't really look for that. Maintain a certificate of accuracy for the testing standards, there's some others coming in the market, but right now it's pretty much a monopoly for Tesco, which is why the equipment is probably so expensive. And make sure they have a copy or a available copy of the Division 9 Title 4, so our field reference manual. Next. Common violations, installation of unapproved devices, not type approved. We're being pretty lenient on some of the RSA stuff right now, just because we know there's not a lot out there, and we know the equipment's hard to get. So at least my county's trying to be a little lenient with that, and work with people. But we really need those placement service reports so we know where these are. And another thing that we're running into out there, especially with municipalities and counties, is charging by time instead of kilowatt hour. You cannot charge by time. You have to charge by kilowatt hour for the energy you're delivering. You can have a time function if they fill up and it stops charging. A lot of people will start charging for time after that to encourage people to move. That's fine. But when you're delivering fuel, it needs to be by kilowatt hour. Next. So planning and building departments, like I said, there's a checklist that you have to go through. It was law passed in 2015, AB 970. We're going to try to work on getting us added to that checklist, so we're notified when these are installed. Next. That's kind of my most of my presentation here. I'd like to thank my former San Mateo County employee and current sealer of Ventura County who put this together. I just kind of changed some words and changed some pictures, but John Bell put this presentation together. I kind of zipped through it a little bit quickly. But like I said, I know some people can be frustrated by our response and how we're maybe not out there, but like this is really a situation where technology kind of outpaced regulation. I had a couple complaints early on about some DC devices that I couldn't test because I didn't have the equipment and the state didn't have the equipment. So we've caught up. We've got the standard. We've had it for a little over a year now. We really started doing heavy testing in May of last year. And I believe when I queried it last year, we've tested just under 1,200 devices, 1,200 ports, I should say. And the passing rate was about 98%. Most of the failures were equipment failures, not metrological failures that we tagged them for. So there's been very little failures for metrological reasons. And that's kind of all I've got.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thanks for all the information. Really interesting stuff to think about. Next, we're going to have our third panelist come up. Mal Skoran is a trained engineer and clean energy policy professional specializing in EV charging infrastructure. She has expertise in regulatory policy at the state level, technical standards, legal metrology, and market enabling policy across North America. Her work focuses on policies that accelerate the build-out of EV charging infrastructure, including EV-ready building codes, electrical codes, permitting, utility energization, and clean fuel credit programs. And the floor is yours, Mel.
Thank you. First of all, really pleased to be here today. As you could tell from my intro, I love getting in the weeds on regulatory issues, and weights and measures is my favorite issue to work on for Tesla. So always looking for more places to talk about the work that we're doing alongside counties and states across the country to advance consumer confidence in EV charging accuracy. So next slide, a little bit about Tesla charging. Tesla has the largest DC fast charging network in North America, and a very large population of level 2 chargers as well as part of our destination charging network. From the get-go, our charging business has always existed to sell electric vehicles. That's our North Star and the reason the business exists. And a big part of that is not just mimicking the gas station model and the experience of refueling with liquid fuels, but going beyond that to create a truly magical experience for the driver. I think there's a common misconception that an EV charging station is just like a fuel station, but we know that consumers interact with them in really different ways. And so our goal is to make it seamless, convenient, and reliable in order to continue to drive EV sales. Next slide. A big part of how Tesla has been able to deliver on a magical charging experience is our deep vertical integration. And that has actually extended to the weights and measures space. I like to think of it as three kind of core buckets where there are typically three different stakeholders filling in the role of equipment manufacturer, device owner operator, and then registered service agent. But Tesla sits in a unique place because we wear all three of these hats for our equipment in the charging space. So we manufacture it, we own and operate chargers, and then we also do our own installations and service. So what Jeremy was talking about in terms of the different obligations, we've been able to see all those different pieces and have found some efficiencies and also some potential challenges. So on the manufacturing side, we get CTEP and NTEP evaluation for our equipment. Tesla charging stations do not have display screens on the hardware itself. So both the mobile app and our vehicle dashboard are evaluated as screens as part of the type evaluation process. So everything that a consumer needs to see related to price and how much charges have accumulated, all that good information is available whether you're driving a Tesla vehicle or you're a non-Tesla driver using the Supercharger network. As an owner-operator, Tesla is responsible for registering devices and paying the fees in every county. And at the end of the day, the owner-operator is responsible for all aspects of compliance on weights and measures things. And then finally, Tesla is also registered as a service agent. So we register our installers and service technicians on staff. They apply all required labels in the field and submit placed in service reports. We're continuing to scale that up, not just in California, but across the country. I think suffice it to say, one big challenge is that we've had service techs and installers doing that work of installing charging stations for a very long time. And so just building up awareness in the workforce to really understand like what are the obligations of an RSA and what's required, and having the processes in place to make sure that all of those requirements are being followed is continuing to build, especially as each of the 58 counties in California have slightly different processes and expectations. So we're working alongside our county partners to figure out what we should be doing and how to remain compliant. Next slide. So one advantage I think that Tesla has had is that we've served all three roles. And so if a county runs into an issue, they know exactly who to reach out to because there's no one else when it comes to Tesla equipment. But that is changing very rapidly. We are growing our business to sell white labeled equipment and services to other businesses, both on the level 2 side and for DC fast charging. For level 2 or AC devices, typical customers include apartment buildings, condos, workplaces, hotels, any entity that wants to offer EV charging in order to attract tenants, keep employees happy, or attract visitors for a hotel. And so I think moving forward, we're very conscious of the fact that it could be more confusing to figure out who owns the device and who to reach out to in these issues. And so we're doing our best to try to help guide our customers to take what we've learned, wearing all three hats on the weights and measures side, and then make sure that our customers know what their obligations are, as well as trying to figure out how we can make it as easy as possible for all stakeholders to maintain compliance with all the weights and measures related requirements. Next slide. So a couple of challenges based on early implementation that I thought I'd highlight. I think the first thing, and it's been referenced a couple times already, but we are really building this plane as we're flying it. There are lots of devices that have already been installed. These rules are largely being enforced for the first time. And I think on the industry side, you don't know what you don't know. For the most part, I think we're really proud of our track record for meter accuracy. Tesla equipment has been inspected and sealed into the hundreds at this point, and we're proud of our meter performance. But the things that are catching us or tripping us up across the industry tend to be more of those administrative requirements, especially given the level of variety across counties. And so I think our first challenge is, trying to figure out how do you move the ball forward on these programs, and make sure that enforcement isn't a teaching tool. And so we really want to, I think, make sure that there is lots of education and engagement leading up to enforcement that would shut a charger down and remove it from service. And so we're kind of generally requesting that counties utilize that blue tag or conditional use authorization to keep chargers in service for more of these admin issues, and then really step up enforcement if there are issues that are impacting the consumer in a negative way. I think on industry side, what will help with that is establish points of contact and better communication so that when there are more of these administrative issues, there's someone on the other side of the phone to pick up and help work through these things. But given that these programs are all new, I think we're trying to get our feet out from under us, and kind of triage, especially with 56 different counties where we have equipment. So I think we found some good partners across counties on that, and trying to make sure that that is an approach that's taken consistently across the state. Next slide. And this was discussed a little bit in previous presentations as well, but the test equipment that counties need to purchase in order to enforce meter accuracy, that is also a challenge on the industry side, because a service agent typically needs access to this equipment in order to do their job. And we see that as kind of a gating item to make sure that there are RSAs who can fulfill the demand that's out there. So obviously Tesla, we fulfill this function internally, but we also have a lot of customers that are looking for these third-party services. And so making sure that there's enough of a workforce out there to fulfill these obligations is going to be important. I think the other thing that we're thinking about is, so for the most part, a lot of EV charging hardware does not have field adjustable meters. So basically, the equipment is manufactured, you have a meter that is not adjustable, it's tested at the factory, and then it's shipped out. And then for the life of that device, you can't make adjustments to it. And so there are lots of repair activities that an entity can do that doesn't affect the meter's correctness at all. So refilling coolant, for example, you open up the post to do that, but doesn't affect the meter or its accuracy or its performance. So I think one challenge is trying to figure out exactly which functions will need an RSA and which ones will be able to be done just with a regular technician who doesn't need access to test equipment in order to make sure that EV chargers are functioning and working properly. I think we're also hoping to just more broadly leverage in-factory testing to make sure that both county inspectors and consumers are feeling good about the fact that meters are tested and accurate without having to add the extra step of testing in the field, which does take time and can add to the cost of installation as well as delay an open to public date. And then last slide, I just briefly wanted to wrap up and say that we have 3 North Stars for how weights and measures programs can scale effectively. So the first is we really want to make sure that we're prioritizing consumer protection. Drivers aren't going to want to buy EVs if they feel like EV chargers are not delivering what they pay for. So it's a really important function, and I'm really appreciative that counties in California are taking on that so that we can continue to drive EV adoption. But we also want to make sure that as we're figuring out what this oversight looks like, we don't unintentionally disrupt EV drivers or take chargers out of service for kind of minor growing pains that I think we're seeing across the industry. And then finally, I think this is an issue for both the industry and from the counties, trying to figure out how to scale these programs at reasonable cost and effort. Because obviously, 180K is quite expensive equipment to acquire. So, kind of the more efficiencies that we can find to make that program low cost, I think the better off we'll all be. So, really appreciate the time and looking forward to any questions and discussion.
Thank you so much, Mel. Really interesting to be thinking about the scaling issue. And I think I'd like to start our Q&A with that question. Essentially, as we are intentionally growing the fleet of EV chargers, are you thinking that it makes sense to, it sounded like you were in favor of doing more in-factory testing, and perhaps would that mean something like representative sampling of the in-field testing so that you're not testing each and every device in the field? And maybe what criteria are you going to have to look at to permit somebody to do that sort of less rigorous type of testing, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, given that generally the expectation is for equipment to be tested upon installation, allowing factory testing just to serve that initial obligation makes a lot of sense. Again, because you can't make any adjustments after the device leaves the factory. So being able to use that is helpful. In terms of kind of broadly scaling the programs, I think that there's always going to be a need to spot check and have the counties go out and do that enforcement and make sure that we're not just saying things are accurate, but it's actually coming to play. Obviously, there's also an issue with drivers being utilized and not being able to actually get to the charger that you're needing to inspect. So I think over time, especially as there's more and more data that is giving confidence that these chargers are accurate, it could make sense for counties to do a sampling approach. So instead of having to test every single charger on site, you test 20% of them. And if those look good, then the site gets a clean bill of health. And if there's an issue, then you test more and more. So that could help, I think, both address the scaling issue and also the constraint of resources on the county side. But I think you need the data first in order to make that make sense.
Right, right. Having the baseline first. Matt or Jeremy, do you have a comment?
I do. So I mean, there is a lack of data right now for this. Whether factory placing basically placing in a service at the factory. I think we need a lot more data on that. And sampling out in the field, we're going to need a lot more data on that. And I'll use gas pumps as an example. Like I said, we test a lot of gas pumps, and I think most counties are in the high 90s of passing and failing. How many people here think we'd be in the high 90s of passing and failing if we weren't out there checking it? So I don't want to say it's a slippery slope going down sampling out in the field, but I'll say it's a little bit of a slippery slope sampling out in the field. It would be extremely unique in the devices we test out in the field for it to be done in a sampling manner. That being said, I can see their argument. These are basically CT meters in these devices, and if you know what those are, they travel well. So traveling generally doesn't knock them out of tolerances. But like I said, I think there's going to be a years of data that's going to be needed to move towards a sampling thing in the field, and I don't know if it'll ever come. But I mean, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, especially after 2030 when everything has to be in compliance. We only have one test standard, and we're moving along with that because we can ignore a lot of these because were installed prior to 21 for AC or prior to 2023 for DC, so we don't have to test them. But once they all have to be legal, we're going to need more standards in this county. And hopefully by that time there'll be competition in the market. It won't basically just be one company manufacturing these that has a monopoly, and the prices will come down. But it's hard to say. And for those that don't know, California is unique in how they do weights and measures. Most every other state has a state department of weights and measures, and they do the weights and measures throughout the state. I like to think that our system is much better at protecting the consumer because, frankly, we're out there more. We know we have the local knowledge. We know where stuff is, or we're out there more. We can inspect more frequently. I can see how that would be frustrating to companies like Tesla and ChargePoint because they're not just communicating with one organization, they're communicating with what, 52 plus the state. So I can understand how that can be frustrating for the manufacturers. But like I said, I firmly believe our system is better here in California, and I firmly believe consumers are protected better in California because we have the county commissioner slash sealer set up that is unique to us. But like I said, it's we have a lack of data right now, is what it comes down to. So we need to take the next couple of years, and while we ramp up and get that data together, and then we can come to the table and kind of make some policy decisions.
Matt, did you have some more ideas?
I would like to make a couple comments. So the idea of having a company test its own device in the factory. How many factories are in California? I think it was like three or something like that. There's five or seven others that are in the US, and the rest are produced overseas. We can't verify how they are. They can say, oh, we're testing it this way for now, but we can't verify that they're actually testing it accurately. We can't verify what's going on. And then it gets out here. We have to assume if this becomes how we do this. They test it in the factory. We have to assume it's correct until we get a complaint. And then we found out this entire batch came out bad. They weren't actually testing it the way we thought. They changed things up. It was cheaper to test it in this way, or they batch tested it. Um, Concern of mine for batch testing, you've got what, 1-2% errors in the fields. If we test 20% of them, how often do you catch that one or two with that error? We're not. Might take 5-10 years, or until a complaint, which means many people are either been cheated or the company was giving more electricity than they thought. Um, and with EV, I think it's a little bit harder to tell that I think I was overcharged here versus traditional gas pump. 50 gallons was dispensed into my 20-gallon gas pump. I think there's a problem. That's an exaggeration, but you get the idea there. I mean, it's the speed it's going to spill your gas pump, your battery depends on how many people are on that charger at the time. So it's different every time. The complaints are going to be in there. We're going to get complaints all the time. We have to respond to those complaints. But it's hard to tell when there's actually a problem or the grid is, under stress right now. There's 50 people charging in this bank. It came in slow. Well, I think it was just not filling me up. Um, so I see a lot of challenges. I mean, it'd be nice to lower our workload and everything, but I can see some potential issues coming up from either one of those methods. And we test every device, every commercial device in the county, period. That's just what we do. We're adding one more to it. We'll get there eventually. And right now, if we don't test them all, we don't test them all. We'll probably end up at a slightly lower rate, maybe test them every few years and eventually get where we need to be. And that we'll just have to deal with. But we're doing the best we can, and we're going to try to get there.
Right. Yeah, thank you. It seems like all of the approaches have some flaws, and it's trying to find out the least worst scenario. Um, did you want to respond to any of that, Mel?
mean, I guess I'll just say, definitely not advocating for any approach that relies on trust us, it's accurate. I will say that the factory testing framework is something that Europe does, and that includes an independent audit, right? So it's not just here's the test that we do according to the manufacturer, but here's an independent body that says, like, yes, okay, these procedures are consistent with what we're seeing. So I think, alongside the need for more data and gearing up the programs here, trying to figure out like how do you make that scalable and maybe taking some best practices from other jurisdictions in the long run could be helpful because there's already, according to the Energy Commission, 50% more EV chargers than there are gas pumps in the state of California. And we have about 7% of the roads or 7% of the vehicles on the roads as EVs. So it's going to be a lot of devices in the long run. So
Right. Yeah. The problem is a slowly approaching train that we know is going to crash. That's not a good analogy, but we know it's coming. Um, Thanks for that clarification about the other countries. I'm curious if any of you have given thought to what kind of support would be helpful coming from the state and coming from the DMS. If there's a particular, Jeremy alluded to the fact that this is kind of a decentralized county by county process, but are there things that the state could be doing to give more support in some way?
So I mean the state is giving support. They do have devices that they can loan out to counties, and I think they recently with the most recent shipment, I think they have 17 devices that they can loan out to counties. I'm not sure how many man-in-the-middle cables they have to that would allow counties to test DC. But no, they're who we go to for training. So they're out there training the counties how to do this, and sometimes they send them to us for training and questions. So we are helping each other out between county and county. The state is helping out. I'll give my little spiel here. State Department of Measurement Standards needs more funding, not just for this, for everything. They are horribly underfunded as the largest consumer protection agency in California. So I don't know, talk to your talk to your representative and push for DMS to get more funding. That would be extremely helpful to get DMS up to a point where they have the funding and the staff. So, but DMS has been extremely helpful rolling this out and very responsive to coming out for our training needs. And before we had the devices, we'd have to get on their schedule, but they would come out and they'd test devices for complaint if the equipment could test it. So the state's been helpful, but it's a lot. It's a lot to roll out, and it's a lot for the counties to purchase these devices. We were lucky that this county we could afford to purchase the device a little bit earlier than some other counties and get out there and start testing. But that's not the case for every county in the state. Fund DMS is my message there.
Any other thoughts? There is a question here from Brant who asks, has there been research into comparing equipment meter data against utility meter data when on a dedicated meter to identify problem sites remotely? I guess that's a kind of a cross check on what's happening. Does that ring
yeah,
a bell for anyone?
I can take this one. So I think part of the issue is that utility meters serve the entire site, whereas charging station meters, it's for the individual dispenser or stall. So if you're trying to figure out if for a particular session or transaction that was accurate, when you have multiple transactions, there's no way to really confirm that. In addition to the fact that there's line losses between the site meter and potentially the site dispenser. So you can't really use the utility meter to check this particular per session accuracy that the counties are interested in.
Thanks, Mel. Thanks for that. Um, I guess another question is if you're looking, let me see. if you're looking into the future at this growing number of chargers that you're going to have to be testing, uh, are, how definitely can you put that into your planning projections, counties? Like, do you know you're going to have to hire more people? Do you know that you're going to have to be spending more hours doing this kind of work? Um, what's your approach to thinking about the scaling again?
So, I do all our budget and personnel. So, yes, we will have to scale up. The amount of work from what we have currently registered, we don't need a full-time staff for that. The problem is, I know there's a lot of things out there. With 600 registered, we probably got a couple thousand or a few thousand that we were supposed to be testing in the county. We just don't know which ones and where. One of the things, I've already got a new staff member, got a petition the board. I really need more staff. So that helped. I had vacancies last year, which is how I got the equipment. And as I mentioned, I'm going to get $21,000 to cover my whole program, which won't cover a staff member for much more than a couple months. So I also have to make sure that the board is willing to fund this consumer protection. So we're going into lean times. So if I tell them right now, oh my gosh, we found all 2,000 devices, I need 2 new staffers to take care of that, which one issue is I don't know the time it's going to take to do all this. We need to do studies or talk to San Mateo. How long does it take to do 100 these devices? But all the counties trying to get this information out. The length of time to do a single inspection on average per county. I need those studies so I need the devices to do the studies, find out how many people I need, but I need the people and the devices to do that. I'm in a no-win right there. So, but I got lucky. The county was generous and said, yes, we'll support your new staff. I didn't have a staff for a long time, enough to save, to get the devices. But yes, I need at least one staff member to take care of this and the other increasing workload that's coming in. So until I get the full number, know how long it's take, I can't accurately decide how much I'm going to need. But from what we've done so far, I know we need at least one. It'll probably end up being we'll need a second one soon, or other work is going to slip. But all the work is mandated. We're not supposed to let any of it slip. But we only got so many people. So.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
So basically, we just need more data is what it comes down to. We don't know yet. I mean, we're probably going to need another staff member because I mean they're getting installed every day. And just if there's anybody on this meeting that's planning on installing meters, even if you're not the service agent, you're just planning on installing your property and you're going to charge for them commercially, just reach out to your local county weights and measures office and make them so happy. I'll compliment Tesla. They're the one that we know way ahead of time before they're going to open up a site, and then they're chasing us down to register and send us a check. So that, if everybody was like that, it would make our lives a lot easier. So if you're planning on doing this, just get in contact with your county weights and measures, and we can make it easier for everyone.
Great. Yeah, I guess one final question I had was around the RSA. It sounded like all of you alluded a little bit to a shortage. How do we fix that? Where does that come from?
Technically, it's just an exam, and I think I'm probably dating myself. It was like a $20 or $50 fee to go with that exam, and you can be an RSA. I'm sure there's more training and getting the equipment. That, for us, it took us over a year to get the equipment. Paid for it, but it's that there's a shortage of equipment as well as the RSAs.
It's the equipment that's the limiting factor.
But I mean, $20 in the test, and you can become an RSA.
Yeah, and just so that our fee structure, we're limited on what we can charge. It's in regulation, and the max isn't very high, especially for this type of device that requires specialized equipment, and it's in the same category as like a hanging scale, testing a hanging scale as far as what we can charge for it. So, and the changes to our device registration regulations are few and far between. So the counties are sometimes a little handicapped on what we can charge and collect, and they generally does not fund our full programs.
And for both agriculture and for weights and measures, there's a California Code of Regulations says that all municipalities can charge to recover costs, but there's a little exemption carved out for agriculture and for weights and measures. So
Yep.
we're not allowed to charge for anything unless it is specifically called out in regulation. So we have to change the law to charge a fee or to change a fee, period. So it's
It's a slow process.
$26 right now. So it's $26 until we can 2 years minimum to get that law changed.
Very interesting. Well, I am glad that all of you mentioned communication as being really a foundation to how this process could all be smoothed out. Yeah, credit to Tesla for being excellent in terms of having everyone know what's going on and that vertical integration. Um, Looking forward to hearing more stories from the field and hearing how this process is going for all of you. But thank you to all of our panelists today for your great insights and appreciate the discussion as well. Thank you. All right, so we will move on to our next uh, section. Our survey results from December 2025. So if you recall, back in December, we asked you to fill out our member survey where we pretty much focused on a very small number of questions. What's your organization? What are the activities that you value in EV Council? What kind of funding models are you interested in for sustaining EV Council long term? And what are your desired activities and priorities? So I'm going to go over just some of the results that we found from the survey. In general, we had representation from a broad number of categories. In the green here is government or public sector or agency, seems to be our largest component, followed by nonprofits and also small businesses. And then there's also an individual category that was represented. For the second question, what do you value most? The top three responses that we received were industry updates and information. That was common to almost everyone. So really looking for the latest trends. And then the second response being Bay Area Community Connection. That doesn't surprise us at all because that is one of the things that sets us apart from some other groups and other webinars. And number three, networking opportunities. And I think this points to the value that people found in our in-person meetings that we had over the past years. Moving on to the question of where the funding might come from in question three, I'm showing here on the left very strong support from the respondents for both sponsorship and grant funding as potential funding sources for EV Council. And over here on the right, more mixed reactions to the two models of dues that were proposed. One is a fixed membership dues model, and the other is a flexible membership dues model, which is a sliding scale depending on org size. Those both did not receive very high levels of support. It was fairly mixed. And finally, question four, what activities or priorities would you support? And in the blue bars, we have high priority, and then to the right of that, medium, then low, and then green is kind of a not sure. And I think you can see that the tallest blue bars here are for peer learning, networking and community building, and industry advocacy. So those are the three that stood out. We also had some high support, high priority votes for professional development and administration/operations, and pretty much medium priority for all of the five categories there. So I just wanted to share those with you so that everyone was able to see what came in. I think what we are doing now is very reflective of people's desires. We're doing the peer learning, we're doing panel discussions. We are hoping to continue the tradition of having an in-person get-together to work on that community building and networking aspect. And I'm hoping that through our e-blasts, we can offer more advocacy opportunities for people and send along different announcements of different industry happenings as well. So if you have any other feedback, you're welcome to email us at evcouncil@actera.org and keep the feedback coming in. So one more announcement before I open it up for the roundtable. Our next EV Council meeting will likely be in June of this year and likely in person. That is to yet be confirmed with Air District because they would probably be the ones to host us. So we'll have more information about that coming soon. If you have suggested topics that you'd like the meeting to revolve around or any kind of themes, please feel free to email us. And looking forward to seeing you all in person. Our last segment is our usual segment of roundtable announcements. So please raise your hand if you have something to share with our group, and I will call on you. Anyone have any announcements to share? All right, I see some hands coming up. Margaret, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, hi there. I wanted just to introduce myself to the group here. I am Margaret Larson. I am in a new business development role at PG&E. I started in November and I'm working with the EV Advisory Services team. They offer guidance to medium and heavy duty fleet operators and others as they transition to EVs. And so consider myself a resource. If you want to learn more about the EV Advisory Services, my colleague presented at the December meeting for EV Council. So you could go there. But yeah, nice to meet everyone. And this presentation has been really helpful. So thanks for putting this together.
Thanks, Margaret. And yeah, feel free to put your info in the chat if you would like people to be able to reach you. Yeah, we did enjoy that Fleet Advisory Services presentation in December. Pete, you're next.
Sorry, didn't unmute. Thank you, Wendy. Thanks you to Lauren and everybody at Actera for putting this on. It's always educational and interesting. We have a couple of electric vehicle ride and drives coming up. One that we're working in conjunction with Silicon Valley Clean Energy. We're going to have that in June down in Gilroy. We're still trying to nail down the location, and it would be Saturday, either 20th, 27th, or 13th in Gilroy, probably somewhere in the South Valley Plaza, Gilroy Auto Mall area. And then we'll be having our 8th annual electric vehicle ride and drive at Lake Cunningham Park in San Jose on Saturday, August 15th. So just want to let everybody know about that. And just email us at Silicon Valley Clean Cities Coalition and or Breathe California, our host organization, if you're interested in learning more. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. And if you'd be willing to put that same information in the chat, that way we can make sure we can share it later on. Thanks. Susan, you're next.
Thank you. Thank you and good afternoon. Really appreciated hearing the presentations today. My name is Susan Fazell. I'm a Senior Aviation Project Manager for the Port of Oakland. I work at Oakland San Francisco Bay Airport in our planning and development group. And we're interested, we have about 100 charging stations here at our site for employees and tenants and customers today. And we're interested in expanding our EV infrastructure, level 2 infrastructure in our daily parking lot. And I just was wondering if anyone on the call would have any so we'd like to install these using a design, build, operate, maintain agreement. And so I was just wondering if anyone on the call had any suggestions to entities we could reach out to that they may be familiar with that are working on doing projects of this scale on the West Coast. That we could reach out to. If you could pop that in the chat, I'll put my info in the chat, or if you want to email me afterwards. But I would just love to hear if you at your site or in your organization, if you've been working on similar projects, just would love to connect. I know things change and just trying to gauge whether this, the market might be a little soft right now. I'm not sure. But anyhow, just looking for any expertise anyone on the call might have that's been through this recently. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan, for that great question. And Josh, is this in response to Susan or a separate thing?
Yeah, this is in response. Just wanted to, I'm Josh with San Jose Clean Energy in the city of San Jose. I just wanted to plug the SPUR, SPURR PAVE program. SPUR is a joint purchasing organization originally founded for K-12, but has also expanded to other public agencies that pre-negotiates collaborative and piggybackable agreements that make purchasing easier for public agencies. And their PAVE program is specifically for EV charging infrastructure. They have 4 different consultants with pre-negotiated contracts on hand. They all have each of them has their specialty and what they work on. But I would definitely suggest checking that program out to help out with purchasing in that space. And the folks who run that program are very great, and they will happily meet with your leadership to help them understand how they can collaborate on these existing agreements.
Fantastic. I really appreciate that, Josh.
Thank you, Josh. Yes, Burr with an extra R. Anyone else have any announcements? Oh, Annika, did you want to mention anything?
Sure. Yes, we currently have our March exclusive EV discounts going. I just dropped the link in the chat there. So we have great pricing, exclusive discounts on 5 popular EVs. So check that out. Please share with your communities if you would like. It's likely that we'll have another one coming up in April, and we'll be running a pre-owned savings campaign also around Earth Day. And we also have EV and e-bike shows going on throughout the Bay Area, from Vallejo to Palo Alto to Walnut Creek and Marin County. So check out our events page to learn more.
Thanks, Annika. Thanks for putting the link in the chat.
Yeah.
Any other announcements or updates? Okay, well, thank you again to Matt Slattengren, Jeremy Ady, and Mal Skoron for our wonderful presentations and discussion today. I'm really appreciative of the time they took to be here and teach us all about weights and measures. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will be in touch with a recording from today. We will share some of the slides from today, and we will be looking forward to our next meeting in June. Thanks very much, and have a great day.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks.